The vast crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with anticipation as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the most controversial session in recent memory. Humanity had petitioned for membership, and the debate had raged for cycles. Today, they would finally witness what Earth's children had to offer. Admiral Kane stood at the observation deck, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the alien delegates take their positions. The Vorthans, with their sleek metallic exoskeletons, commanded the largest contingent. Their empire stretched across 14 star systems, and their military might was legendary. Beside them, the crystalline Nexari chimed in harmonic frequencies, while the gaseous ethereals swirled in their containment fields. "Honored Council," boomed Overlord Vex, the Vorthan representative, his voice carrying through the chamber's translation matrix. "We gather to discuss the humans' request for membership in our esteemed alliance. However, I must present evidence of their limitations." The chamber's central display flickered to life, showing images of Earth's orbital shipyards. Kane's jaw tightened as he watched the alien delegates lean forward, their various forms of laughter filling the air. The ships displayed were indeed a sight to behold, hulking vessels cobbled together from salvaged materials, their hulls a patchwork of different metals and composites. "Behold," Vex continued, his mandibles clicking with amusement, "the human fleet, scrap ships, constructed from the detritus of their homeworld. Note the mismatched hull plating, the jury-rigged weapon systems, the complete lack of aesthetic coherence. These vessels represent the pinnacle of human engineering." The Nexari's crystalline forms pulsed with what Kane recognized as their equivalent of laughter. "Such primitive construction methods," one chimed. "Do they truly believe such craft could stand against our battle fleets?" Kane remained silent, though his eyes never left the display. Yes, their ships looked rough around the edges. Earth's resources were limited, and humanity had learned to make do with what they had. Every plate of hull armor told a story of necessity, every welded joint a testament to human determination. "Furthermore," Vex continued, "observe their largest vessel, which they pompously call a dreadnought." The image zoomed in on the Phoenix Rising, Kane's own flagship. "This monstrosity appears to be constructed from no fewer than 7 different ship classes, welded together with complete disregard for structural integrity or combat effectiveness." The Phoenix Rising was indeed a sight that challenged conventional shipbuilding wisdom. Her bow section came from a decommissioned orbital defense platform, while her midsection incorporated the hull of a cargo hauler. Her stern-mounted engines, salvaged from 3 different destroyer classes, and her weapon systems were a mixture of human innovations and alien technology traded through back-channel negotiations. "The humans claim this vessel is spaceworthy," Vex said, his tone dripping with disdain. "I submit that it is nothing more than an elaborate piece of space junk, held together by hope and desperation." The chamber erupted in what Kane could only describe as alien guffaws. The ethereals swirled in agitated patterns, while the Nexari's chimes reached a crescendo of mirth. Even the normally stoic hegemony observers allowed themselves what passed for smiles among their species. Kane felt a familiar burning in his chest, not anger, but something deeper, pride. These beings saw only the surface, only the apparent chaos of human engineering. They couldn't see the genius hidden within the seemingly random arrangement of components. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these front lines to you. "The Council must ask itself," Vex continued, "what place is there for a species that cannot even construct proper warships? Their technology is centuries behind our own, their methods crude and inefficient. To grant them membership would be to diminish the very standards that make our alliance strong." Kane watched as the delegates nodded in agreement. The Vorthans had made their point effectively. Humanity's fleet did look like a collection of scrap ships when compared to the sleek, purpose-built vessels of the established powers. But appearances, as any human engineer knew, could be deceiving. However, Chancellor Morin of the Hegemony interjected, her voice carrying the weight of her office. "The humans have requested the right to prove themselves through combat trials. By the ancient laws of our charter, this request cannot be denied. The chamber fell silent. The combat trials were a relic from the Council's founding, rarely invoked but never formally abolished. Any species could demand the right to prove their worth through battle, though few had ever survived the attempt. Vex's mandibles clicked in what Kane recognized as satisfaction. Very well. Let the humans bring their scrap ships against our fleets. Perhaps a demonstration of true naval power will convince them to withdraw their petition voluntarily. As the session concluded and the delegates began to disperse, Kane allowed himself a thin smile. The Vorthans had taken the bait perfectly. They saw junk where humans saw potential. They saw weakness where humans saw adaptation. Soon they would learn the difference between looking strong and being strong. The combat trials would begin in one cycle. Kane had work to do. The proving grounds lay in the neutral zone between Vorthan and Nexari space, a region of asteroid fields and stellar debris that had witnessed countless battles throughout galactic history. Captain Mills stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as the human fleet took formation behind her. 23 vessels of various sizes and configurations, each one a testament to human ingenuity born from necessity. Vorthan fleet approaching from Vector 7 Mark II, reported Lieutenant Harris from the sensor station. Count shows 12 heavy cruisers and 4 battleships. They're maintaining standard formation. Mills nodded, studying the tactical display. The Vorthans flew in perfect geometric patterns, their ships gleaming like polished chrome in the starlight. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek, deadly, and built for one purpose: war. They moved with the precision of a ceremonial. Honor guard, confident in their superiority. All ships, this is Defiant Actual, Mills broadcast to the human fleet. Remember, we're not here to match them ship for ship. We're here to show them what humans can do when we stop playing by their rules. The response came back in a chorus of acknowledgments, each captain ready to prove that Earth's children belonged among the stars. The Vorthans had agreed to a series of escalating engagements, starting with cruiser-weight vessels and working up to full fleet actions. They expected to crush human resistance at each stage, demonstrating the futility of challenging established galactic powers. Vorthan commander is hailing us, Harris reported. Put him through. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing the angular features of War Master Kef. His exoskeleton gleamed with rank insignia, and his multifaceted eyes held the cold confidence of a predator about to strike. Captain Mills, Kef's voice carried through the translation matrix, I am required to offer you one final opportunity to withdraw. Your vessels are clearly outmatched. There is no shame in recognizing superior force. Mills stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. War Master Kef, I appreciate your concern for our welfare. However, humanity has come too far to turn back now. We'll see this through. Kef's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Very well. The engagement will commence in 60 seconds. May your deaths be swift. The transmission cut, leaving Mills staring at the tactical display. The Vorthans were already moving into attack formation, their ships spreading out to bring maximum firepower to bear. It was a textbook approach, overwhelming force, applied with mathematical precision. All ships, implement Battle Plan Alpha, Mills commanded. Show them what scrap can do. The human fleet suddenly scattered, abandoning any pretense of conventional formation. To the Vorthans, it must have looked like panic ships fleeing in random directions, without coordination or purpose. The alien fleet adjusted accordingly, moving to intercept what they perceived as easy targets. The first surprise came when the Vorthans targeted the Patchwork, a frigate that appeared to be cobbled together from 3 different ship classes. As their energy beams struck her hull, the vessel's mismatched armor plating began to shift and realign. What the aliens had mistaken for shoddy construction was actually modular armor that could redistribute impact across multiple load-bearing points. Patchwork reports minimal damage, Harris called out. Their adaptive armor is holding. The second surprise came when the Vorthans closed to optimal firing range. The human ships, which had seemed to be fleeing, suddenly turned and began coordinating their attacks in ways that defied conventional tactics. The Ironclad, a heavy cruiser built around a mining ship's hull, launched what appeared to be standard missiles. But as they approached the Vorthen formation, the missiles suddenly split apart, revealing that each one contained dozens of smaller warheads. Improvised cluster munitions, Mills muttered with satisfaction. Engineering cores outdid themselves. On that one, the Vorthen shields flared as they absorbed the unexpected barrage, their energy reserves dropping faster than anticipated. But the real revelation came when the human ships began to demonstrate their most unique capability: real-time battlefield adaptation. The Scrapyard Queen, a destroyer that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, suddenly began to transform. Her hull section separated and reconfigured, turning her from a single vessel into 3 smaller craft that could attack from multiple angles simultaneously. The Vorthens, who had been targeting one ship, found themselves facing 3 opponents that moved with perfect coordination. "Impossible," came War Master Keth's voice over the comm. "Ships cannot reconfigure during combat. The structural stress would tear them apart." Mills smiled. "War Master, I think you're operating under some outdated assumptions about human engineering." The battle continued for another hour, with the human fleet demonstrating innovation after innovation. Ships that looked like they were falling apart suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Vessels that appeared to be retreating turned out to be positioning themselves for surprise attacks. Most importantly, the human ships learned and adapted. With each exchange, their tactics evolving in real time as they analyzed Vorthen responses. When the engagement finally ended, both fleets had taken damage, but the psychological impact was clearly on the human side. The Vorthens had expected to crush an inferior enemy with contemptuous ease. Instead, they had been forced to fight for every victory, and several of their vessels bore scars that would take cycles to repair. "This engagement is concluded," Keth announced, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "The next trial will take place in 48 hours. Prepare yourselves for a real battle." As the alien fleet withdrew, Mills allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The first phase had gone exactly as planned. The Vorthens now knew that humanity's scrap ships could fight, but they still didn't understand the true scope of human adaptability. That revelation would come soon enough. The second engagement took place in the shadow of a dying star, its red giant glow casting an ominous light across the battlefield. Engineer Torres stood in the Phoenix Rising's modification bay, her hands dancing across holographic displays, as she made final adjustments to the ship's latest configuration. Around her, teams of technicians worked with practiced efficiency, installing new components and rerouting power systems. "Ma'am, the Vorthens are bringing their heavy hitters this time," reported Chief Petty Officer Blake, looking up from a diagnostic console. "Intelligence suggests they're not taking any chances after last round." Torres nodded, her attention focused on the tactical modifications she was implementing. The Phoenix Rising had been extensively rebuilt since the last engagement, incorporating lessons learned from the previous battle. What the Vorthens saw as crude patchwork was actually humanity's greatest strength, the ability to rapidly evolve and adapt. "How's the new modular weapon array coming along?" she asked. "Installation complete," Blake replied. "The magnetic coupling system tested at 97% efficiency. We can swap out weapon configurations in under 3 minutes now." Torres smiled. 3 minutes was an eternity in space combat, but it was lightning fast compared to the cycles it took traditional shipyards to refit vessels. The human fleet had turned necessity into an art form, creating ships that could literally reinvent themselves between battles. "All hands, prepare for combat stations," came Admiral Kane's voice over the intercom. "Vorthen fleet is approaching. This time they mean business." Through the bay's viewports, Torres could see the alien formation taking shape. 36 vessels this time, including several of the Empire's feared dreadnoughts. The Vorthens had clearly decided to overwhelm humanity with sheer firepower, abandoning any pretense of a fair fight. "Ma'am, we're getting telemetry from the scout ships," Blake reported. "The Vorthens have modified their shields to counter our cluster munitions. They've also deployed sensor jammers to prevent our coordination protocols." Torres studied the incoming data, her mind racing through possibilities. The aliens had learned from their defeat, adapting their tactics to counter human innovations. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed human ingenuity was limited to the modifications they had already witnessed. Implement configuration. Delta, she ordered. All ships, prepare for dynamic reconfiguration. The human fleet began to shift and change, their modular construction systems engaging in ways that defied conventional shipbuilding wisdom. The Defiant's hull section separated and reformed, creating a vessel with entirely different capabilities. The patchwork absorbed components from 2 escort ships, transforming from a frigate into something approaching cruiser weight. But the most dramatic change occurred with the Phoenix Rising herself. Torres watched through the bay's reinforced windows as the massive ship began to unfold like a mechanical flower. Hull sections that had appeared to be solid suddenly revealed hidden joints and coupling mechanisms. The ship's length doubled as new sections extended from her core, while her weapon arrays rotated and reconfigured into entirely new configurations. "Torres, what have you done to my ship?" Kane's voice carried a mixture of amazement and concern. "Made her better, sir," Torres replied, her fingers flying over the control interface. "The Phoenix Rising isn't just a dreadnought anymore. She's a mobile shipyard, a command center, and a weapons platform all rolled into one." The Vorthons opened fire first, their energy weapons lancing out across the void. But the human ships were no longer where they appeared to be. The fleet's new configuration allowed individual vessels to share shield generators and power systems, creating overlapping defensive fields that confused targeting systems. "Their jamming isn't working," reported the sensor operator. "Our ships are still coordinating perfectly." Torres nodded with satisfaction. The Vorthons had tried to disrupt human coordination by targeting their communication systems, but they had failed to understand that human ships didn't rely solely on traditional communications. The modular construction systems created physical connections between vessels, allowing them to share not just power and shields, but also tactical data and processing power. The battle became a demonstration of human adaptability taken to its logical extreme. When the Vorthons concentrated their fire on the Phoenix Rising, the massive ship simply separated into 5 smaller vessels, each one carrying a portion of her firepower. When they tried to surround human formations, the ships recombined into different configurations, creating new tactical options on the fly. "War Master Keth is requesting communication," the COM officer reported. "Put him through," Kane ordered. Keth's image appeared on the viewscreen, his exoskeleton showing signs of stress fractures. Behind him, Torres could see damage control teams working frantically to repair battle damage. "Admiral Kane," Keth's voice carried a note of grudging respect, "your ships. They violate every principle of naval architecture. How do they maintain structural integrity during these transformations?" Kane glanced at Torres, who nodded her permission to share some information. "War Master, human engineering is based on a simple principle. Form follows function. When the function changes, so does the form." "Impossible," Keth protested. "The stress loads alone would crush your hulls. The power requirements would overwhelm your reactors." "Only if you think of them as individual ships," Torres interjected, stepping into the camera's view. "We don't. We think of them as components in a larger system. Each vessel is designed to share resources with others, to combine and separate as needed. What you see as weakness, our patchwork construction, is actually the source of our strength." The battle continued for several more hours, with the human fleet demonstrating increasingly sophisticated adaptations. Ships that took damage didn't retreat for repairs. Instead, they reconfigured themselves to work around the damage or absorbed replacement components from other vessels. The Vorthons, despite their superior numbers and firepower, found themselves fighting an enemy that literally evolved during combat. By the engagement's end, both fleets had taken heavy casualties, but the psychological impact was devastating for the Vorthons. They had brought their best ships and their most experienced crews, and the humans had fought them to a standstill using vessels that looked like they had been assembled in a junkyard. "The next engagement will be the final trial," Keth announced. As the fleets disengaged, "We will bring our full battle fleet. If you survive that, the Empire will consider your petition for membership." As the Vorthon ships withdrew, Torres allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The aliens still didn't understand what they were truly facing. They thought they were fighting ships, but they were actually fighting human ingenuity itself, and that was a battle they could never win. The final engagement would prove that point beyond any doubt. The final proving ground stretched across 3 star systems, a vast arena where the full might of the Vorthan Empire could be displayed without restraint. Admiral Kane stood in the Phoenix Rising's command center, watching as the enemy fleet took formation. 127 vessels, including the Empire's most advanced dreadnoughts and their legendary flagship, the Eternal Dominion. "Sir, we're receiving deployment data from the fleet," reported Commander West, his voice tight with tension. 43 ships reporting ready for combat, but several are running on jury-rigged systems. Kane nodded, studying the tactical display. The human fleet had grown during the trials, not through reinforcements from Earth, but through the constant process of adaptation and reconfiguration. Damaged vessels had been cannibalized to strengthen others, creating new hybrid designs that pushed the boundaries of engineering possibility. "Sir," West continued, "the Vorthans are broadcasting on all channels. They want to speak with you. Put them through." The main view screen filled with the image of High War Master Vex himself, the supreme commander of the Vorthan military. His exoskeleton was decorated with the honors of a dozen campaigns, and his multifaceted eyes held the cold certainty of absolute victory. "Admiral Kane," Vex's voice resonated with imperial authority, "you have impressed us with your tenacity, but this charade ends now. Behold the true power of the Vorthan Empire." The display shifted to show the alien fleet in all its terrible glory. The Eternal Dominion alone was larger than half the human fleet combined, her hull bristling with weapons that could crack planetary shields. Around her, dreadnoughts and battlecruisers formed a wall of steel and energy that had never known defeat. "You have fought well for primitives," Vex continued, "but you face the accumulated might of 14 star systems. Your scrap ships cannot stand against the Empire's finest. Surrender now, and your species will be granted the honor of serving as auxiliary forces in our fleet." Kane stepped forward, his expression calm despite the overwhelming odds. "High War Master, I appreciate your generous offer, but humanity didn't come this far to become someone else's auxiliary. We'll see this through to the end." Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Very well. Your courage at least is admirable. The engagement will commence in 30 minutes. Use that time to prepare your final messages to Earth." The transmission cut, leaving Kane alone with his thoughts. The Vorthans were right about one thing: this was the end. But they were wrong about which end it would be. "All ships, implement final configuration," Kane commanded. "It's time to show them what scrap can become." Across the human fleet, the most dramatic transformation yet began to unfold. Ships that had seemed to be individual vessels suddenly revealed their true nature as components in a vast, interconnected system. The Phoenix Rising began to extend docking arms and connection cables, linking herself to the vessels around her. One by one, the human fleet began to merge into something that defied every principle of naval architecture. "Sir," West reported, his voice filled with awe, "the integration is proceeding ahead of schedule. All ships are reporting successful connection to the network." Kane watched as humanity's greatest achievement took shape before his eyes. The individual ships didn't disappear. They became something more, their separate capabilities combining into a single, unprecedented construct. The Phoenix Rising formed the core, her massive hull serving as the foundation for a structure that grew and evolved as more vessels joined the network. "Vorthan fleet is moving to attack formation," the sensor operator reported. "They're maintaining standard battle line formation." Kane almost felt sorry for them. The Vorthans were still thinking in terms of traditional naval combat, bringing their superior numbers and firepower to bear against what they perceived as a desperate last stand. They couldn't comprehend what they were truly facing. The battle began with the Vorthan's standard opening, a coordinated barrage designed to overwhelm enemy shields and create gaps in their formation. But the human fleet no longer had individual shields to overwhelm. Instead, they had created a single unified defensive system that could redirect and absorb energy from multiple sources simultaneously. "Their weapons are having minimal effect," West reported. "The network is distributing the energy load across all connected vessels, but defense was only the beginning." As the Vorthans pressed their attack, the human construct began to reveal its true capabilities. What had appeared to be a desperate defensive merger was actually the birth of something unprecedented, a spaceborne titan that could reshape itself in real time to meet any threat. When the Vorthans concentrated their fire on one section, that section simply reconfigured itself, moving critical systems to protected areas while bringing new weapons to bear. When they tried to flank the human formation, the construct extended new arms and projections, creating firing positions that hadn't existed moments before. "Impossible," came Vex's voice over the comm. "No ship can change its configuration that rapidly. The structural stress would tear it apart." "High War Master," Kane replied, "you're still thinking of this as a ship. It's not. It's something entirely new." The Eternal Dominion moved to the attack, her massive weapon systems charging for a killing blow. But as she closed to optimal range, the human construct did something that stunned even Kane. It began to separate and reform, creating a hollow cylinder that surrounded the Vorthan flagship. The enemy ship found herself trapped inside a cage of interconnected vessels, their weapons pointed inward. "Sir," West reported, "we have the Eternal Dominion completely surrounded. She has no avenue of escape." Kane studied the tactical display, watching as the Vorthan fleet scrambled to respond to a situation they had never encountered before. Their flagship was trapped, their formation was in chaos, and their enemy had revealed capabilities that transcended their understanding of what was possible. "High War Master," Kane opened a channel to the surrounded flagship. "I believe it's time to discuss terms." The response came after a long pause, Vex's voice carrying a note of something that might have been respect. "Admiral Kane, you have demonstrated capabilities that we did not believe possible. How do your ships maintain coherence during such radical transformations?" Kane smiled. "High War Master, our ships don't maintain coherence, they create it. Every vessel in this fleet was built from salvaged components, jury-rigged systems, and human ingenuity. What you saw as weakness was actually our greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to change, to become something greater than the sum of our parts." The battle was over, though not a single ship had been destroyed. The Vorthans had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by a fundamental shift in how warfare itself could be conducted. They had brought their finest vessels to bear against humanity's scrap ships, and learned that scrap, in the right hands, could become something magnificent. As the human construct began to separate back into individual vessels, Kane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The trials were over, and humanity had proven its worth. But more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that innovation and adaptability could triumph over tradition and overwhelming force. The real test would come next, when they faced the Galactic Council's final judgment. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. Representatives from across the galaxy crowded the observation decks, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of astonishment as they watched the holographic display of the final battle. The impossible had happened. Humanity's scrap ships had not just survived the Vorthan trials, but had defeated the Empire's finest fleet without destroying a single vessel. Chancellor Morin of the Hegemony called the session to order, her voice carrying the weight of history. "We convene today to witness the final judgment of humanity's petition for membership in the Galactic Council. High War Master Vex of the Vorthan Empire will present his assessment of the trials." Admiral Kane stood in the human delegation area, flanked by Captain Mills and Engineer Torres. Behind them, the rest of Earth's representatives watched in silent anticipation. Everything they had worked for, everything they had sacrificed, came down to this moment. High War Master Vex took his place at the speaker's podium, his exoskeleton bearing the scars of his recent defeat. When he spoke, his voice carried none of its previous arrogance. "Honored Council," Vex began, "I stand before you as a warrior who has witnessed something that challenges every assumption about naval warfare. The human fleet has demonstrated capabilities that transcend our understanding of what is possible in space combat." The chamber fell silent as Vex continued. "When we first observed their vessels, we saw primitive constructions, ships cobbled together from salvaged materials with no apparent design philosophy. We mocked their scrap ships as evidence of human inferiority. We were wrong. The holographic display shifted, showing recordings of the human fleet's transformations during the trials. Gasps and exclamations filled the chamber as the assembled delegates watched ships merge, separate, and reconfigure in ways that defied conventional engineering. What we interpreted as crude construction was actually sophisticated modular design. Vex explained. What we saw as weakness was actually adaptive strength. The humans have created vessels that can literally evolve during combat, changing their capabilities to meet any threat. Nexari representative Chime of Stars pulsed with curiosity. But surely such transformations would compromise structural integrity? Our model suggests that rapid reconfiguration would tear any vessel apart. Torres stepped forward, requesting permission to speak. At Chancellor Morin's nod, she addressed the chamber. Honorable delegates, our approach to shipbuilding is fundamentally different from yours. You design vessels for specific purposes, optimizing them for predetermined roles. We design them for adaptability. The display showed technical schematics of human ship construction, revealing the intricate network of modular components and redundant systems that made their transformations possible. Every human vessel is built around a core principle, Torres continued. No single component is irreplaceable, no single system is critical. Our ships are designed to function, even when heavily damaged, to combine with other vessels when needed, and to reconfigure themselves as circumstances demand. Ethereal representative Whisper and Void swirled in their containment field, but such redundancy would reduce efficiency. Your vessels must be significantly less capable than purpose-built ships. In individual combat, yes, Kane interjected. But we don't fight as individuals. We fight as a collective, each ship contributing to a greater whole. Our scrap ships become something greater than the sum of their parts. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated the implications of human engineering philosophy. Some argued that such radical adaptability was impossible, while others wondered if their own fleets were obsolete by comparison. Chancellor Morin called for order. High War Master Vex, what is your final assessment of humanity's military capabilities? Vex's response silenced the chamber. Chancellor, in my opinion, humanity represents the most significant military innovation in galactic history. Their ability to adapt and evolve in real time makes them nearly impossible to defeat using conventional tactics. More importantly, they have demonstrated that victory doesn't require the destruction of one's enemies. The display showed the final moments of the last battle, when the human fleet had surrounded the Eternal Dominion without firing a single shot. The Vorthons had been defeated through superior tactics and innovation, not overwhelming firepower. The humans trapped our flagship without causing casualties, Vex continued. They demonstrated that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to achieve objectives through superior capability. I formally withdraw the Empire's objection to human membership. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vorthon Empire, the most militaristic power in the galaxy, was not just accepting human membership, they were endorsing it. Chancellor Morin stood, her voice carrying the authority of her office. The Galactic Council will now vote on humanity's petition for membership. All in favor? One by one, the delegates signaled their agreement. The Nexari chimed in harmony, the ethereal swirled in synchronized patterns, and even the notoriously isolationist hegemony cast their vote in favor. The final tally was unanimous. By unanimous consent of the Galactic Council, Chancellor Morin announced, humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance. Furthermore, in recognition of their unique capabilities and innovative approach to conflict resolution, Earth is granted a permanent seat on the Council Security Committee. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as celebration, with each species expressing approval in their own way. Kane felt a surge of pride as he watched his fellow humans embrace each other, tears of joy streaming down their faces. But the real validation came when High War Master Vex approached the human delegation. Admiral Kane, he said, his voice carrying genuine respect, the Empire would be honored to discuss technology exchange agreements. We have much to learn from your adaptive engineering. Kane extended his hand, and Vex grasped it in the first gesture of friendship between their species. High War Master, I think this is the beginning of a very productive relationship. As The formal ceremonies concluded, and the delegates began to disperse. Kane found himself standing before the great viewport that overlooked the Council's orbital facilities. In the distance, he could see the human fleet in formation, no longer the collection of scrap ships that had been mocked just cycles ago. Torres joined him at the viewport. "Sir, what do you think they'll say back on Earth when they hear about this?" Kane smiled, watching as the Phoenix Rising performed a slow victory roll, her modular sections shifting and flexing like a living thing. "I think they'll say that we did exactly what humans do best. We took what others saw as worthless and turned it into something magnificent. The scrap ships of Earth had become titans among the stars, and humanity had taken its place as one of the galaxy's great powers. Not through conquest or destruction, but through the simple human ability to adapt, to innovate, and to never give up. In the end, that had made all the difference.